The points that you can spend for High Elves in characters are some of the best points you can spend in the game. And that often means that you end up with a really efficient dragon. But what if instead you wanted to play High Elves without a dragon? I've been playing around with various different character loadouts, whether to go with or alongside or without a dragon. So I thought it would be fun to bring you my top 10 character builds without dragons in them. I've got 4 casters, I've got 3 BSBs, and I've got 3 fighty characters, trying to make sure that I've represented all of the different detachments. And let's start off with the wizards. The first build is a direct answer to what am I going to do if I face up against a dragon? I haven't got my own dragon. How am I going to deal with it? Well, what if you brought the Dragon Slayer? Full disclosure, this is not on the level of the Baron with the heroic killing blow, that Bretonians can bring. However, this does give dragons a little bit of concern to think about. So, the way that this works is we're going to take an Archmage, we're going to take it with the Sea Guard honor, and put it on a Lothan Skycutter. This is something that you can only take in the Grand Army, because you can't take Archmages in the Sea Guard detachment, and you can't take the Skycutter and Sea Guard honor in the Tracian detachment. So this is a Grand Army build, but what you get is a fairly tanky package. You've got 7 wounds at T4 with a 4-up armor save and a 5-up regen. That's not going to keep you safe forever, but it is enough that you can charge into a dragon pretty safely and have 1, maybe 2 cracks at bringing them down with your dragon slaying sword. Speaking of dragon slaying sword, the combo that we're going for here is that we're going with the 50-point magic item dragon slaying sword. It's effectively a hand weapon, but on 6s to wound, it has Monster Slayer, which is quite nice. Obviously, you've only got 2 attacks if you're playing an Archmage, so the way that this works is we're picking Illusion. We're going for the very obvious Spectral Doppelganger combo, picking up Lore Familiar, making sure that we get all the spells that we need, Seed of Rebirth to give you a little bit more regen, and then you just go in, try and cast your Spectral Doppelganger, and really just hope for the best, because there's not much else that you can do to increase the reliability. This does fall down a little bit. I'd like to get a power scroll in there, but we are capped on points. It's unfortunate that we can't fit that in, but this is pretty much the cap of what we can do with items. I think it's fun. I think if you want to solve a problem, or at least have a threat that can threaten to solve a problem, this is a solid pick, and it's reasonable as well. Illusion's a good lore overall. You'll pick up Miasmic Mirage to try and stop one of their big units from charging and slow them down as well. Column of Crystal is really nice because you can just block the positioning of where your opponent's going to be. Also, obviously, you get Glittering Robes as the signature spell, making you -1 to hit. So you are fairly tanky. You're not going to fall over immediately, which is nice when you're talking about a wizard, because wizards are usually not the tankiest. One of the main draws for me that makes this go from being just a funny build to maybe something that's quite good is while you still have to charge in the normal 90-degree arc, you do have 360-degree vision for casting your spells. So if a dragon runs past you, you can still cast Miasmic Mirage on them, try and stop them from charging, buy yourself a turn to, position better, turn around, catch them, because you'll stop them from marching as well. So you should be able to pin down a dragon if everything goes well for you. One last important detail, this is going to be able to catch a dragon because it is a fast chariot. It flies, it has swift stride, and it's fly 10, so it's pretty speedy. On top of that, it's a heavy chariot with D3+1 impact hits. So even though you've got an Archmage on top that isn't really going to do anything to anyone other than some sort of monster, between the crew, the rock that's carrying it, and the impact hits, you can still cause some issues to the smaller, lighter units that you might end up hunting, just to make your points back. Following on with the chariot theme and the spectral doppelganger theme, what if you're in the Tracian detachment? What if you want to have a caster that hits pretty hard, but you can't take the Skycutter? That's fine, because what we've got here is an Archmage on a White Lion chariot, and this is really solid in my opinion. Obviously, you've got a lot less mobility, but you've got a lot of the same bonuses. You're still tanky. You've got 7 wounds. You're T4. You've got a 4-up save with a 5-up regen. Because you've taken the Tracian Hunter, you actually get a 3-up save against incoming shooting. Not magical shooting, but a lot of stuff that might threaten you is incidental or Iron Drake shooting, that sort of thing. You're picking Illusion, obviously you're going for a level 4, and what you need to do is you need to take the Tracian Hunter upgrade. It is an honor. 10 points, it gives you the Lion Cloak special rule. It gives the ability to take a Tracian Greatblade for free, which is a fantastic weapon. +2 strength, AP -3. It is strikes last, but you're tough enough that you're not really too bothered about that. What this means is when you're casting your Spectral Doppelganger, you're going to be throwing out a load of auto hits at strength 5, AP 3, which is not the best Spectral Doppelganger combo in the game, but it is pretty good. It is going to mess up a lot of things. Combine that with a couple of attacks you've got in the Archmage, the couple of attacks you've got for the crew as well, and then also you've got the impact hits. You're going to be ripping through a good chunk of infantry. This is the sort of thing that will bully mid-sized units, I would say. I think it's fairly solid. Obviously, you're still going to be picking up Lore Familiar. With Illusion, you really need to be picking up spells because there are some real duds in there. And your entire game plan is hinging around one spell in particular. And we're going to give you Seed of Rebirth as well to give you a bit more tankiness. 20 points for a regen that you can replicate throughout your army. Very good. You're going to see this on most of the builds if we're being realistic. 20 points for an extra save is probably too good. Finally, we have got the points here to go for a power scroll, because we didn't have to go for an expensive magic item. We are able to take a power scroll. That does mean that we are able to cast our spells more reliably. Next up, we've got a more detachment agnostic choice. Obviously, you can't take this in Seaguard because they can't take Archmages, but you could replicate something very similar on the Stormweaver. I haven't done any Stormweaver specific builds because I don't think there's anything that they do that is particularly exciting outside of what an Archmage to do. But if you wanted, you could just go with Circlet and Seed of Rebirth, or Silvery One Seed of Rebirth, whatever, just to make your Stormweaver survive. This is quite a pricey level 4 caster, but what it means is that you can put it into a unit, buff that unit up, and not worry that you're immediately going to be punched in the mouth and fall over, which is something that buffing characters can suffer from, and I do like the ability to make them a little bit more survivable. So, we're going for a level 4, lore agnostic, but if you're going for buffing, you're probably going somewhere like Battle Magic or High Magic. You could go Illusion. Obviously, -1 to hit from Glittering Robes is really nice, but the rest of the lore doesn't particularly synergize in the way that you might want to play with a buffing character. However, do what you fancy. Also, if you want to put this on a steed, if you want to be on foot, tweak as you like. But this character is relatively beefy as wizards go, because the combination of the Circlet of Atrazar and the Seed of Rebirth means that you get up to 4 wounds at T4 with a 5-up regen, which means you have to, on average, take 6 wounds before you die, and you're on a 25 mil base. People are going to struggle to put that much damage into you, with the exception of flying up and hitting you with a Dragon Lord. At that point, you were probably going to die anyway. But you know what? Outside of that, you've got a lot to be going on with. We also have picked up the Silvery Wand here. If you're taking Battle Magic, or if you're taking something like High Magic, you can probably get away with Silvery Wand. You might want to go Lore Familiar, that's an option as well, although points do get a little bit tight. But for me, I think I'd prefer to go just for roll the spells. There's a lot of good stuff in those two laws. Something as well that we've got here is the Pure of Heart upgrade. Because we haven't had to take one of the other upgrades to get on a chariot, we have been able to take Pure of Heart, which gives you a sort of mini inspiring presence. You can use your leadership in a bubble for your unit, but it also means that your unit passes panic checks as well, which if you're going with a buffing character that you're going to put inside a unit, be it, I don't know, some sort of Seaguard, be it Sword Masters, you could put this in anything. Silver Helms, if you put it on a steed. Ignoring panic is nice because you really don't want your expensive unit to be running away. The last build is I would say slightly less practical, and maybe I've gone a little bit too hard on the meme value of this, but this is a Grand Army build only because you're taking Blood of Calidor, but what it does give you is a kind of punchy, kind of survivable character that you can join to your Dragon Princes or your Silver Helms. So what are we going for? Well, level 4, this is lore agnostic, but honestly, if we're doing this, we might want to be looking at Illusion, because otherwise we're not really getting much value out of the lance. We've gone for Blood of Calidor, which does give us +1 weapon skill, getting us up to weapon skill 5. Gives us Impetuous, unfortunately, so you probably want to pair this with Dragon Princes because they have Impetuous already, but it also gives us the ability to wear armor, so you get free plate mail with Blood of Calidor. You are on a barded steed, so you get up to a 3-up armor save. You get a 6-up ward save for free. So there's a lot of defenses wrapped up in that package for free. Kind of makes up for the fact that you have to charge. We're comboing that with a Seed of Rebirth. So all told, you've got 3 wounds with a 3-up armor save, a 6-up ward, and a 5-up regen. Not going to fall over immediately. The items I've gone with here is a Star Lance and the Silvery Wand. If you're going Illusion, you might want to change that Silvery Wand to a Lore Familiar. because then you definitely get the Spectral Doppelganger. But what does this bring? Well, you get +1 weapon skill from the Blood of Calidor. The Lance gets you up to Strength 6 and AP 4, which is just pretty hard hitting. So this means you can put a character in a unit to buff them, but not lose valuable attacks. Honestly, the Star Lance might be too expensive, but I think it's a fun build and something that I'm definitely interested in trying out if I got points to squeeze it in. Something that I could put in with Silver Helms in core and just be like, you know what? We're going to see if we can do as much damage as possible. With the wizards out of the way, let's talk battle standard bearers. I'm going to start off with the Tracian Chieftain, who I think is a pretty cool unit. There's a lot more on here that I think I gave it credit for the first time I looked at it, and I'm impressed with the stat line and what you can do with it. So you start off with a 3-wound mid-tier character that costs you 105 points, then you can layer a lot on top of it. And what we're going for is we're going to give them a combination of the Battle Standard Bearer and the Banner of Resilience, which gives you +1 toughness not only to yourself but also to your entire unit. We're also going to stack that with the Circlet of Atrazar. You've seen this before, but this really gets you up to a fairly beefy stat line, and it means that you've got 4 wounds at toughness 5. Now, your saves aren't the best. You've only got a 5 up armor save, and you've only got 20 points of magic items left. So we're going to put the Cedar Rebirth on there as well to give you at least a 5 up regen. But 4 wounds at T5 with a 5 up save and a 5 up regen. That's going to things from cleaving through you. I don't think you survive to a dragon, but you survive to most things. You're not quite at the Thane on Shield Bearer level of tankiness, but honestly, you're not too far off. It's just the ward save that you're lacking. So maybe you pair this with a, some sort of Archmage that's going to cast Oaken Shield on the unit to give it a 5 up ward. You also hit pretty hard. You've got a Tracian Great Blade as well. Obviously, a fantastic weapon. Gets you up to Strength 6, AP 3. You have Strikes First, so you're hitting at Initiative 5 as well. And you've got Furious Charge. So if you can get the charge off, which is a little bit difficult with this build because you're an infantry model, but if you get the charge off or if you follow up, you're going to get up to a 4th attack there as well. Just a really solid package that's going to punch relatively hard. Moving on to the other detachment, we've got the Sea Guard, and the Sea Guard Garrison Commander has... You can put a lot of different things on it. I think for me, I'm not super bothered about buffing up the toughness of this model because Sea Guards don't necessarily want to be in combat. They'll end up in combat. That feels pretty inevitable. But they're not building to be there. They want to do as much damage as possible before that point so that when your opponent reaches you, they're going to win the combat just on the base stats that they've got alone. So you start off, you're pretty tough. You're not very tough. You've got 2 wounds at T3 with only a 4 up armor save, and we're not going to put any points into defenses. Although you could take a Cedar Rebirth if you find that your character's getting punked, you're finding that they fall over too easily. You go for a Battle Standard Bearer, obviously, giving yourself the rerolls is really nice. Banner of Choice, there's a lot of stuff you can go here. Razor Standard, giving your unit Armor Bane 2. You can go for a War Banner to make sure that you're just a little bit harder to remove. You've got more combat res, so you're going to be winning combats more easily. Going to pick up a shield, and then the magic item that I like here is the Bow of the Seafarer. This is a long-range bow. It is 50 points, but, you're an archer detachment. You probably want to make as much range damage happen as possible. So we're looking at a high ballistic skill, Strength 5, AP 3 shot that is not only multi-wounds D3, but it also has through and through. When is this going to matter? Well, sometimes. If your opponent overruns in a poor way, or if you manage to line up a shot on some knights, you can potentially get through and through. But even just as a single shot at Strength 5, AP 3 with multiple wounds D3, that's a pretty good weapon to have overall. Sure, you're going to wound monsters on 5s, so it might not be the best thing to shoot at monsters, but sometimes you won't have a better target. And there are large targets, so you can always see them. I think this is just quite a flexible package that you can stick in your units of Sea Guard, make use of the Fire and Flee and also the evasive if you need to, and on top of that you've got a little bit more punch, a little bit more consistency because you've got the banner in there as well. Last but not least, we've got my current favourite, which is just a bog standard noble on a Tyrannok chariot. Now, Tyrannok chariots are light chariots, which means that they can join into units, which means that you can put your BSB in a unit and have the increased stats that a light chariot brings. What does this look like? Well, we're going to go with, you know it, you love it, my favourite, the Banner of Resilience, and that takes you up to toughness 5. You've got T4 base on the chariot, so +1 toughness, really solid, and that's going to apply to the unit, whether that's a unit of Sea Guard that you put them in Grand Army, or whether it's, you could put multiple things. You could do Silver Helms is the most obvious one. lots of different options. Going to equip him with a great weapon because honestly, you probably want a little bit of punch, and you can get a lot of your defenses on this unit without needing a shield, which is really solid. We're going to give this unit the Dragon Helm and the Cedar Rebirth, and we're not going to go any further in it. We've already paid for a magic banner that's 80 points, but what this does combine into is between your full plate and your Dragon Helm gets you up to a 3-up armor save, gives you a 6-up ward against flaming, which isn't going to come up much, but when it does, you'll be pleased to have it, and the Cedar Rebirth for a 5-up regen as well. Gets you to 6 wounds at T5 with a 3-up save, 5-up regen. And that is a fairly tanky package. You can tank most things. Honestly, if you need to, you can throw this into a dragon. I'd recommend not, but this is going to survive for a turn. Probably not 2 turns, but it might give you enough time to win on combat rares. Maybe, get your dragon into the flank if you can tie up their dragon. Something along those lines. It gives you a little bit of flexibility to try and win a combat that your opponent wasn't expecting you to. For the last 3 builds, I wanted to go with what do I think is the best thing independent character within each of the detachments, something that you can put out on the table that isn't a dragon but is going to inspire fear or terror, in the case of a griffin, in the hearts of your opponents. First of all, Grand Army. This is the sort of baseline. This is what I'd expect to see. And we're talking about a regular noble on a griffin. You're going to go with Pure of Heart because you don't need any of the other honors, which again does give you that nice little immunity to panic and the ability to have an aura of leadership puffing onto your allies. You've got a reasonable amount of attacks coming out. You're going to give him a great weapon. So you've got 3 attacks at strength 6 AP2. You've got 3 attacks at strength 5 AP2. And then you've got a single bite. The bite's usually terrible, but it is strength 5, AP 0, armor bane 2, and 2 damage. Most of the time, that's not going to matter. Occasionally, it'll go off, and you'll be very pleased that you've done 2 damage to whatever big thing you're fighting against. It also comes with D3 strength 5, AP 0 stomps, which is not always a lot, but sometimes that's going to be making the difference. If you're fighting into something a bit lighter, a bit less armored, you're going to be wounding on 2s a lot of the time. So pick your targets, but this is going to do a decent chunk of damage. How are we building? We're building mostly defensively. We've gone for a Dragon Helm again. You love it. The Cedar Rebirth on pretty much all of these characters. Shield. Obviously, you're not using your shield in combat, but it is nice to have for the increased save, and it gets you to a 2-up save against shooting or a 3-up save in combat. You can choose to go for a lance here instead of going for a great weapon. I personally am a big fan of a great weapon because I find that I get locked in combat quite a lot. Losing those lance attacks in the second round of combat really sucks. So having the ability to just cleave through with a great weapon turn after turn, you're not strikes last because you've got strikes first on your unit, so you're going to be hitting at initiative 5 plus anything, charge bonuses for initiative. So I'm a big believer in the great weapon for elves. Next up in the Sea Guard detachment, we've got the Sea Guard Garrison Commander. Now, there were 2 different ways that we could have gone here. One of the options I thought about was taking the Lothan Skycutter, giving them the Bow of the Seafarer and a regen save, and all I was going to do was trying to fly up flanks and get angles so I can through enemy knights, try and get as much value there. But you start with a lot less defenses on this model. You can only take heavy armor, you can't buy full plate natively anyway. So I thought, what would I prefer to do? And I thought, you know what, let's just go for another Griffin. I think you can take a Griffin in this detachment, make it pretty good, and it does come with some solid benefits over the normal noble, so you might want to take this. And the main benefits that you can take are you've got evasive and fire and flee. So Fire and Flee is not going to do all that much, but sometimes it's going to be better because it means that you can only ever flee 12 inches at maximum if you want to use Swift Stride, while giving you a more consistent long-range flee. So maybe you're near-ish a board edge and you don't want to run away too far, so you decide that you're going to Fire and Flee to run away instead of normal fleeing. That's an option. But evasive is really nice as well. If you've ever played against Wood Elves, it's really frustrating to have to deal with having a big thing that you shoot at, run away. If you're worried about poison shooting bricks, be worried no more, because you can just evasive out of range of them, which is really frustrating to deal with, but a very solid unit to have it on. What do you get? Well, you've still got the Griffin. You've still got the 3 attacks at strength 5 AP2, 1 attack with the bite. You do only come with a cavalry spear, though, so you're not going to hit anywhere near as hard. And I thought the best way to sort of overcome that was we could give you an expensive weapon, but you don't have that great a weapon skill. You don't have, anything that particularly makes that exciting. So I thought, what if instead we just give you the Ring of Fury? Strength 4, AP2 hits from Hammer Hand if it goes off, That's going to do more than just rolling up some lance attacks if we went really expensive and went for the expensive lance there. We've comboed it with the Armor of Caledor and a shield. We're not seeing the regen, Seed of Rebirth here because we haven't got points. The reason we've gone for the Armor of Caledor is it's 35 points, so 5 points more than a Talisman of Protection. But what it does give you is it gives you full plate, which is not something you normally buy on this character. Before people type in the comments, because I do get this every so often, you don't have to be able to buy a specific piece of armor to buy that armor. You just have to be able to buy that type. So if you can buy light armor, you're able to buy any sort of armor, light, heavy, full plate, but you're not able to buy a shield if the character's not able to buy a shield. That's where the delineation comes in. So what does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with a pretty tanky Griffin. You're T5, you've got a 3-up save and a 5-up regen. If you really wanted to, you could drop the Ring of Fury and go for this Seed of Rebirth to be extra tanky. But I think I like this as an all-round package. Comes in sub 300 points, and you can bring it in your Seaguard detachment. Last, but certainly not least, I wanted to see what we could do to push the limits of the Thracian Warhost detachment in melee. So, we're looking at a Prince on Chariot. We could have gone with just the regular Thracian Chieftain, put them on a Thracian Charioteer, or whatever that one's called, or you could go with Corhill, put them on a Chariot as well. Both of these are good options. However, this is equally hitty, if not a little bit harder hitting, but it also has on top of that a lot more defensive stats. So I quite like this. If you're going for a general, you want to keep them safe, you want to have them hit really hard, I think this is the way to go. We're starting off with the Thracian Hunter Honor. This is needed so you can take the White Lion, and it also gives you a Thracian Great Blade for free. What does the Lion Chariot give you? It's a heavy chariot. D6 impact hits to strength 5 AP2, really solid. And how are we equipping this model? Well, we want it to be as tough as possible. So you start off with your regular full plate. We're going to layer on top of that the Dragon Helm and a shield. Yes, you do technically get the Lion Cloak rule from the Thracian Hunter, which gives you +1 to your armor save against shooting. We're going to be using a great weapon in melee, so you're not going to be using your shield there. However, for 2 points, this means that we have a 2-up save against magical shooting as well as non-magical shooting, and I think it's worth doing. But if you really need to shave 2 points, you absolutely can, and then just take your 3-up save against fireballs. It's not the end of the world. So, what are we layering? We've got Dragon Helm, that gets us up to a 3-up save in combat. We've gone for Talisman of Protection, Seed of Rebirth. This is not particularly groundbreaking. We've literally just taken all of the standard defensive items, put them on top, but we have put the Ring of Fury on there as well, because we've got 100 points that we can spend, and why not just go for a little bit more output? That leaves us with 4 attacks at Weapon Skill 7, Strength 6, AP3, 2 attacks at Weapon Skill 5, Strength 6, AP3, and then 2d3 auto hits at Strength 4, AP2, I put 2 hits at Strength 3 there. There's 2 lines as well, so you've got 4 more attacks at Strength 5. This is just a fairly decent set of output. It's enough that you're going to win combat into most things. Obviously, you've got a lot of different options. Being the Lion Chariot as well, you've got first charge, so you can fairly safely go into a brick of ranked up infantry and probably win, even if you do get challenged out. And you just come with a lot of good rules. You've got Stubborn on there, Valor of Ages, all of the good stuff, Strikes First. I think this is just a really solid package if you want to bring a melee beast, but you really don't want to bring a dragon and you're inside the Thracian detachment. Or you could even do it in Grand Army. This is going to hit pretty hard wherever you're able to take it. I hope you enjoyed the video. High Elves have got so many options that it's a real treat to actually build around and play with some different characters and see the different options that they've got. Are there any builds that you think are worth running? Anything that I've missed that you think is particularly spicy? Let me know down in the comments. I am interested to see more things because there are so many options. It's genuinely possible I've missed something that's really good. So I'd love to see if there is one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. If you've reached this point and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscription if you haven't done those things. It just helps me get seen by more people, boost me up in the algorithm, all of the stuff that the YouTubers do like to say. If you would like to support me in my goal to become a full-time YouTuber, I would absolutely appreciate that. You can become a member below. There are various perks to those, name at the end of the videos, all that good stuff, but it also unlocks some VIP areas in Discord if you become a Longbeard or Ground Knight tier supporter. Those VIP sections are the only parts that are locked away in Discord. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. I'd recommend that you should. We've got about 450, 500 people on there. It's a great place for discussion, a lot of fun. I do try and chime in as much as possible. And it's also where the Fix My List show lists are put, and also if you are one of the Grail Knight or Longbeard tier supporters, where you participate in choosing which list I play in the monthly Pick My List series.